Yo guys, how's it going? Riches here. I hope you're doing well. Are you tired of not being able to aim properly? Are you tired of not being able to turn on people or not being able to track down enemies that are flying in, but other people are doing that to you? If that's the case, make sure you watch until the end of this video. Hopefully these settings will help you in improving that aim. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is, of course, make sure that if you're using a mouse, your DPI is set correctly. Now, whatever software or whatever mouse you're using, make sure you have the software downloaded so you can, of course, change that DPI for that mouse. So I'm using currently a 800 DPI on my mouse. Majority of the people use an 800 DPI on their mouse, but you might feel a bit different. You might feel less DPI. You might need more. So depending on your preference, obviously go ahead with that. And obviously I don't know what mouse you're using, so it depends on that. With controller, I'm actually not 100% sure on that, but with controller I'm pretty sure you already get aim assist, right? It's just a joke. Hopefully controller players are also doing well. With that, here we go. Over to settings, in-game settings. Of course, the first thing I want to do is obviously keyboard and mouse, because I personally am a keyboard and mouse player, so I'm going to show you that. I'll not go over your controller because I don't know anything about controller. I don't play controller, but hopefully this video will help you still to understand how to sort of improve in the game and make sure you have that insane aim. So here on my mouse settings, what I have here is, of course, 6.7 as my mouse sensitivity. Now the sensitivity of course also correlates to my DPI for the mouse, and for me 6.7 seems to be good. And obviously it also depends on how much desk space you have for you to be able to move around your hand. For me 6.7 is good enough for me to do a 180 turn, and that's what I think is good for my aim. Everything else I just leave at 1 because I want there to be a consistency with my aim. Same thing with the ADS sensitivity multiplier. Once again, I leave this as 1 as well. ADS sensitivity type, you want this to be relative because you want it to be so when you're aiming down sight, it gradually changes, and also it remains as 1, and there is no change when you aim down sight from the multiplier being from 1 to like a 0.8 or something, right? So that's what that is. The monitor distance coefficient is 1.33 for me. It depends on your monitor. So I have a 1920 by 1080, so it's 1.33. If you have a 1440 monitor, then I think it is 1.78 for yourself. This I have off. Vertical aim axis, it's all just standard. Precision, and then mouse calibration, I haven't done anything there. Then I'll move over to graphics for your graphics settings. Actually, before that, if I go back to keyboard and mouse gameplay, these are my settings for the toggles. I think this is pretty standard and basic. Just go ahead with what feels best for you, but here it is just if you want to have a look on mine. Keybinds, once again, majority of the keybinds are just standard as they are, except I've just changed one particular thing where open weapon mounting, I use my mouse button for that weapon mounting. And also just for the diving functionality, I just use one of my mouse buttons also to be able to dive. Then we go over into graphics. Now, of course, graphics will be dependent on sort of what kind of PC you have. For me, majority of the stuff that I run is on low. Although I have an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3070, I can of course run this game at its maximum capacity. I still run it at low, and even if you find somebody that uses a 4090, they are still going to be running the game on low because that's how the game performs best, and you are actually able to get more frames out of the game, especially with how the game is optimized currently, which you all know is not that good. Of course, you want to go with full screen exclusive because, yeah, that will give you the most FPS, and your GPU, your hardware is going to focus more onto the game. So you want to have full screen exclusive. Your display monitor will remain as your primary source. Then you've got your GPU, of course, whatever GPU you have. Your screen refresh rate will of course be dependent on the monitor you have. So my screen is 144 Hz, so it's 144 Hz as you can see here. If you have a 75 Hz, then of course it will be 75 here. If you have a 60 Hz, that will be 60. Or if you have the top notch 244 Hz, then of course that will be here also. Display resolution, this should default automatically to your own display, but here you can just select from the list. For me, as I mentioned, 1920 by 1080. Dynamic resolution, have this off. Aspect ratio, leave it as automatic. VSync off, no need for that. Your custom menus, have it as maximum for in-game, but for the menus I'd say just lower it, because there's no point for your GPU to be overworking when you're just in the menu and it doesn't need those frames. So I've just got that limited to 100. You can literally reduce that to 50 if you want, but I just have it as 100. These settings right here, obviously they don't matter. If you want to restart the shader optimizations, if you're having any hitching in games, that can help. Then you have shader optimization, display gamma, leave it as 2.2. Your brightness, again, depends on your monitor. I have this set as 60. You might like it as 55 or 60 or higher, up to you on that. Then you move on to quality. This is custom because obviously you want to make some changes. So 100 as the resolution. Then fatality cast. This is by far the best upscaling and sharpening, no matter what GPU you have. I have this set as 80 for the strength. Then SMAAT2X as the anti-aliasing, or you could go with the Filmic. I just prefer the SMAAT2X. Anti-aliasing low, video memory. Now this again depends. I have this as 75. Some people set it to 90. Again, just try it out. If you see like 75 is good for you and you're not having any issues or hitching in the game, keep it there. Or if you're having any issues, maybe increase it by 5 and see how that is. And then everything else here is low, as you can see. There's nothing much to really explain there. Bullet impacts on, this, just turn it off. No point on having some persistence damage layers. Shader quality low, tessellation we on this off. On demand, make sure this is turned off. 100% turn this off. It doesn't need to be on. You don't want game files to be downloading when you're playing. Shader quality low, default water quality, shadow map resolution low. We have this off, low for spot cache low once again. And then yeah, you can see everything else. So you get the gist of it. Majority of the stuff or everything just on low or very low. And if you try these settings, I'm 100% sure your frames will be better. Yeah, so try that. Field of view, I play at 110 instead of going full maxed out 120, because I still want to be able to see on those far distances. If I try 120, it's a bit harder to see for me, so I've kept that as 110. You want this to be affected. Weapon field of view, by default it will be default obviously. I prefer wide because that's way you're able to see a little bit more on your close range, and also your weapon appears a bit smaller, so I like that. And these obviously going to have least third-person ADS and game perspective. So there is that. Moving on to audio, I before used to use headphone bass boost, but I think PC is actually better right now, especially to hear those footsteps. So PC, master volume 100, gameplay volume, just don't max it out, just keep it as low as possible. Dialogue volume, once again, you don't need this to be high. FX volume, you want this to be 100 so you can hear those footsteps. Cinematic volume doesn't need to be high, so 20. War track volumes, once again, you don't need that to be high, so you can lower that also. Default system device, whatever sort of you're using for your speakers. If you're using voice chat, obviously those things are default. So the main aspect is obviously your volumes. Then you have got your interface. Now with interface, this really helps with how your game appears, and the main thing here is your color customization. Make sure you're on filter 2 and just make it on both, and turn everything to 100 right here, and that will really help with sort of making the game a bit more sharp, you know, a bit more crisp, so the game looks good. And these are sort of the color customizations I have gone with. Again, it's not the same thing that you have to do, but this is what I've gone with. You might feel that is useful. So yeah, that is the settings, and hopefully you find this useful. Please do make sure you hit the subscribe button and like the video. It does help a lot with the algorithm and the channel. I'd really appreciate that. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. Take care.